So a new subscriber did very kindly request that I don't slurp my Black Rifle coffee in your guys' ears as we begin these episodes. And out of respect to him, I didn't do that for this episode. But you guys know what was just going on there. That was the sign of another profitable event, UFC Vegas 57. Clean sweep. We hit both of our 2 plays that we targeted. We also had another play in the Bellator card. You guys know we had a very exciting Bellator card. Sorry I didn't get the prediction video out to you guys. Those will be going out to you guys in the near future. But we hit the 1 play that we targeted there. We'll briefly touch upon that before we get into the giant UFC 276 fight card. I'm very excited for this fight card. Back-to-back fight cards that are just oozing with talent. Some of the best fighters in the world all performing right in front of our eyes. You guys know what time it is. We have a great episode lined up for you guys. What else can I say? I'm feeling really good. Hitting 12 of our last 13 official plays going into this giant event. That's a big deal. I don't want to sit here on my high horse. I hope I don't come off like I'm being cocky or whatnot, but I'm telling you guys right now, 12 of our last 13 official plays targeting underdog lines, respectable lines. If you take the average of all the lines that we've attacked, it's been a very balanced attack. We have a great ROI over the past month, and we're talking about big money coming in. So obviously I'm feeling really good right now. Shout out to everybody that's been riding with me for my official plays. And with no further ado, hit the tunes.
The teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts. Undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC 276. We got a stacked card. One of the best strikers to ever bless the sport of MMA. Israel Adesanya throwing down with the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier. The guy is just an absolute brute of a man. Crazy power. Throws some devastating elbows himself. I can't wait to jump into that fight here later in the show. We'll talk about how I think that's going to go down. Speaking of some of the best strikers to ever bless the sport of MMA, Max blessed Holloway getting the trilogy match with Volkanovski after losing the first 2 matches. But let's be clear, the vast majority of us do believe that Holloway won the second time around, and the first fight was very competitive as well. And Holloway has just been on an absolute tear. He is very deserving of this rematch. And speaking of being on an absolute tear, Volkanovski, the guy is just an ever-growing fighter. His skill set just continues to get better and better. Definitely engraving his name in the history books is Volkanovski. So that fight is just super exciting. I'm really, really pumped up for the 2 championship bouts. But other than that, let's be clear. This overall card is just stacked. Sean Strickland taking on Alex Pereira. If you guys don't know the history of what's going on with Alex Pereira being here at the co-main event slot, everybody wants to see him versus Israel Adesanya down the line. He has to continue to prove that he's a well-rounded MMA fighter, but he is on the fast track to get that opportunity if he can continue to go out there and get victories. Going out there and taking out Sean Strickland is a major step in that direction, and I think that the UFC has shown now that they're on board with that route based on what they're doing here. So Sean Strickland's no joke, though. Sugar Sean O'Malley taking on Pedro Munhoz. I can really rave about almost every single fight throughout this card, I'm telling you guys, but I'll save that as we dive into the entire card here in a second. There's a few things I do want to talk about. First and foremost, thank you for all the support that you guys give me. It's much appreciated. Go follow me on all my social media platforms. On Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. On Twitter, the MMA Teller. Please hit that subscribe button and that like button while you're here on the channel. Shout out to everybody that's here for the premiere. Hope you guys are hitting each other up in the comment section, bouncing ideas off each other. We're going to be recapping UFC Vegas 57. As we talked about earlier, another clean sweep. We've been an absolute fire. But there's a couple other things I want to talk about, right? I've been running this little special over on my IG for all my people that have IG. If you're interested, all you got to do is hit the comment section up, and you got to give me 3 correct winners for these events here. And you got to tell me how these fights go down. You got to say how the job gets done, whether it's submission, knockout, or a decision. And then you got to pick the round. If it's a knockout or sub, you pick all 3 correctly, and you get a free package of my official plays that you can use for any event that you want moving forward. So just if you didn't know that I've been doing that, that is there for you guys. So the Instagram has been booming, and it's a lot of fun over there. You guys know that's really my favorite social media platform here, besides the YouTube page here. But I do want to put more content out to you guys here as promised, and that will be happening. As you see, small stuff happening behind me, but nothing compared to what it will be in the near future. So just bear with me here. All right, guys. So it is that time. We're going to go recap UFC Vegas 57. It was a good one. So you guys know how we do it. We start at the bottom of the card. We work our way up. We talk about where we went wrong, where we went right, from a betting perspective, from an overall pick perspective. Remember now, we learn from each of these cards that we go through, and we take that information as we move forward, and it helps us be better overall bettors. Just always remember that there's always learning experiences from all these cards. Jinyu Frey loses to Vanessa Demopoulos. I did pick Frey to win this fight. I thought that she actually won the fight. A lot of people did agree that Frey won the fight. I saw you guys all in the comment section on IG a little disappointed in the decision there, but hopefully you weren't targeting this fight at all from a betting perspective, because the line was a little ridiculous, and Frey is not really a girl you can trust, and we know Demopoulos is always live for a sub, but it wasn't the sub that she got. It was just she had some success in the feet. She's a tough cookie, and I thought that Frey landed the more significant, heavier shots early. I thought she did enough to take 2 rounds. What'd you guys think about that fight there? Mario Batista takes out my ex-rival, Brian Kelleher. I say my ex-rival because I'm on to bigger things now. You know, me and Kevin Holland, I have the big beef brewing. And Brian Kelleher is just, he's just such old news now. I don't even know if he's going to be hanging around in the UFC much longer. We did fade him here. We did have a 2-unit play on my boy Mario Batista. Got him at minus 159. Again, if you follow me on IG, you're getting an up-to-date recap of all my bets over there. As soon as the fight takes place, I got my posts going up on IG. So if you want to keep a more up-to-date status with me over here, IG is the place to go. Twitter as well, if you have Twitter. But I was all over Batista here. I love the length and the size advantage that he possessed going into this fight. Brian Kelleher is really a fighter that has gotten away with getting victories in the octagon against fighters that are not really UFC caliber fighters. Check his resume. He's been in there with some tough fighters as well, and he loses. All right. So Batista, in my opinion, is a fighter that really has a lot of potential. I love where he trains. I love the overall skill set he possesses. He's well-rounded, and I think he'll be hanging around in the bantamweight division for some time to come. Cody Durden takes out JP Bays. Now, this was a tough one to watch. If you didn't know, Cheyenne Vlismas, it was her birthday on the day of these fights. We already know the background of Roman Dolidze getting the knockout, first-round knockout just a week prior to this event when Dolidze was a big underdog against Dawkins. And then JP Bays has his opportunity to steal the show and get some momentum back in his life, and it was tough, man. He got knocked out. You guys know I was on Cody Durden. Listen, I don't pick emotionally. I know some of you guys poke at that once in a blue, but I really don't. I pick these fights how I see them going. Cody Durden's an underrated fighter. He could wrestle. I felt very comfortable. He would have stuffed Bays' takedown attempts, and on the feet, Bays is just clunky. He has bad striking defense. His head's sitting there in the center line, and Cody Durden teed off on him. And now that JP Bays has lost 3 fights in a row, probably he's going to get cut. He's still very young. I hope that he stays positive and continues to train and gets an opportunity with PFL or Bellator potentially. Maybe the UFC gives him one more chance, because he did take a fight against Montel Jackson as well, up in weight on short notice. All right, so Julian Paiva loses to Sergey Morozov. Morozov drops that first round, but then uses the wrestling later on. Morozov's a very good fighter. He's the real deal. You keep an eye on him, but that line was too high to be touching as far as from a betting perspective. TJ Brown loses to Jalin Nuerdanbiek. This guy Nuerdanbiek is a tough decently well-rounded fighter, very physically strong. He has good wrestling. Really, his wrestling is his strong suit, and he was getting the better of TJ Brown, who has some wrestling in his own right. So that was a tough loss for TJ, and the line was too high on him. Hopefully, none of you guys targeted him there. That was a joke of a line if you were targeting TJ Brown. Tefan and Chukwi gets knocked out by Carlos Olberg. Carlos Olberg, man, this guy is a very talented striker. We've seen him hesitant in some fights. We've seen him slow down in fights. Just keep in mind that he got into the sport of MMA late. He has the kickboxing background. He's a similar fighter to Alex Pereira. Give them some time and they will shine. And Tefana and Chukwi, I was surprised to see him go out like that, basically from a jab. I know he was coming off a knockout loss, but overall, he's a guy that has shown to have a decent chin. I thought that he would have kind of bullied Olberg a little bit and took that fight, but another fight that I would have wanted nothing to do with from a betting perspective. That fight had trap all over it one way or another. So, and then we get to the big 6-unit play of the card. You guys, I locked this play in nice and early on Chris Curtis. I actually got him locked in at a line of -150 early on, which if you guys were paying attention, a lot of money was coming in on Vieira, which I was surprised to see. It was better off for me because I was even able to lock in Curtis even as low as -125. I guess people were believing in Vieira. They saw that he cut some of the muscle mass and he was working on his striking. His striking looked pretty decent. His cardio looked way better. And he's going to give a lot of guys problems in the future. I do believe that. But people are sleeping on Chris Curtis. He has very good takedown defense. He's the better striker. There was a clear avenue for victory for him here. And a 6-unit wager was a solid wager for me to capitalize on. And that was the play that brought me to 12 of my last 13. Which I should mention real quick before we finish this card that I did have a Bellator play on Magomedov, who got the finish himself. That was Friday night. So if you're wondering why we had another victory, 12 of our last 13, grab Magomedov over Enrique Barzola. I'm very high on Magomedov, a very well-rounded fighter. Just to touch upon that real quick as well. Umar Nurmagomedov, speaking of guys I'm very high on, this guy, he's just an absolute stud. The cousin of Khabib. The potential of him is just ridiculous. I mean, there's future champion written all over him. The striking is solid. The grappling is ridiculous. He went out there, bullied a guy, Nate Maness, that is a solid fighter. That was a big performance. Thiago Moises defeats Christos Giagos. I did pick Giagos to win this fight. I thought there was a possibility he could have went out there and did his thing. I had the fight more capped evenly. I like the wrestling edge that Giagos had. I like the tenacious type of striking that he has. He's very aggressive. He brings the fight. I thought there was potential he could have clipped Moises. Moises coming off that knockout loss. Moises is a tricky fighter. His jiu-jitsu is very, very high level, and we saw what he just did to Giagos there. Got that submission. If you think about what Islam Makhachev did to Moises, and you think of how high level of a fighter a guy like Thiago Moises is with his grappling, it really, really makes you understand how talented Islam is, which I'm going to be talking about here in a second when we get to the main event, because Arman Sarukian and Islam Makhachev have a little thing that I'm going to talk about here in a second as we get up to that. Josh Parisian comes back, gets the victory over Alan Budat after Budat was getting the better of him on the feet, but Budat faded, got taken down, got controlled down there, got finished. He was just gassed, couldn't get the bigger man off him. And then we had Shavkat Rakhmonov, who I'm just so high on, man. Shavkat Rakhmonov is the truth. You see him looking down on the welterweight division here in this post that I created, just looking like Xerxes from 300, just staring down at it. I mean, this guy is well-rounded. I mean, there's not many men that go out there and do what he just did to Neil Magny. I know Michael Chiesa had some success in the grappling department against Magny as well, but very few men do what he just did against Magny. It was very impressive. I am higher on him right now than I am on Khamzat Chimaev. And you guys know I was very high on Khamzat. I don't know, man. This guy Shavkat, to me, seems like he might be a little bit more well-rounded. We'll see. A little bit more battle-tested in his fights. And that was very, very impressive. And I'm very impressed with myself for staying away from that 2-leg parlay of Shavkat Rakhmonov and Arman Sarukian, because I was close to doing it. But you guys know what I was saying on the show here just last week. Mateusz Gamrot is legit, and I wanted nothing to do with this fight based on where the line was. I did think Arman Sarukian was going to come through. I'm extremely high on him, and I still am high on him. But Mateusz Gamrot is just a very well-rounded fighter who has ridiculous grappling. I thought there was an avenue for him to snatch up a sub. He can sub anybody if he gets his hands on you. I mean, he's just a very talented fighter. He's grinding over at American Top Team. I thought that Arman Tsarukyan won this fight. I thought that he won 3-2, but it was extremely close. And the last 3 rounds, they really could have gone either way. I thought Arman Tsarukyan took the 4th when he hit Mateus with that spinning back fist, but Gamrot was all over him. Who did you guys have winning this fight? And I really felt for a lot of you guys because I know a lot of you guys threw Tsarukyan in parlays. I saw you guys in the comment section. A lot of you were messaging me. I gave you guys my thoughts. I said the line was too high to touch, and I really hope that you guys stayed away from it, the majority of you guys. But Arman Tsarukyan looked so good in the first 2 rounds. It's the first time he's ever fought a 5-round fight. Arman Tsarukyan is still extremely young. Let's keep things into perspective here. Arman Tsarukyan, only 25 still. This was a big-time learning experience. But if you were to ask me right now, if he gets that rematch against Islam, he's not ready for that rematch because Islam will dominate the grappling late in the fight, just as Mateus Gamrot did, and he'll control the fight there and he'll take over. Tsarukyan will continue to work on things, and eventually he might be fighting for the belt one day. But right now, Gamrot got that decision, and it was a tough one. I think that Tsarukyan did win the fight 3-2, potentially even 4-1. I gave Tsarukyan the first 2 rounds clearly, and then the 4th and the 5th round. Even the 5th round, he ended up on top. He got that last little reversal. He was landing the body kicks here and there, but Gamrot was holding him. Got the little takedown there. Who did you guys have winning that fight? Please let me know. I'm really curious who you guys had winning that fight. Hit the comment section up. And that will recap UFC Vegas 57. We now hit 12 of our last 13 plays. I'm saying it again because I'm just soaking it all in. And now we move forward where we're going to hit some more plays. You guys ride with me here. We're going to be hitting some more plays moving forward for the big UFC 276 card. Let's go slide over there. We got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Julija Stoliarenko in the first fight of the event. I know what you guys are thinking. You don't even really want to hear much about this fight. It's a below average fight in general, but on a fight card like this, it does stand out a little bit. But don't worry, at the maximum, it will be 15 minutes. I guess really 18 minutes, right? Or no, 17 minutes with the little breaks in between rounds. But you guys, you'll be all right. Before you know it, we'll be cruising through 276. All right. But all jokes aside, Jessica Rose Clark, some of you guys probably will be excited to watch her step down in the cage. She's a tough cookie. Tatted up. She's a tough grappler. She's been working on her striking. But I really do feel her bread and butter is pushing her opponents up against the cage, throwing knees into the thighs, sneaking in the takedown, raining a little bit of ground and pound, controlling them. She has decent power on the feet. I'm not really too impressed with her technique there. Not too impressed with her athleticism and technique and speed and whatnot. But if you're not up to par, she could hang with you. Stoliarenko, maybe a little bit more fluid and a little bit quicker on the feet, but her striking defense is lacking as well. She's a little wild. She's more of a grappling-based fighter. She has the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's definitely been pulling subs off. And hey, listen, Jessica Rose Clark is coming off a loss where she was just subbed by Stephanie Egger. Stephanie Egger, the black belt in judo, the judokian black belt there. I think that Stephanie Egger is an underrated fighter that's on the rise right now. I don't think that Stoliarenko is on her level necessarily. At least she hasn't really shown it to me. But from a submission standpoint, she's definitely live to pull off a sub on Jessica Rose Clark. I could see Jessica Rose Clark potentially trying to rip this fight down to the mat and get some control time down there. And there will be arm bars getting thrown at her and other types of subs as well. And I think it's very possible that something like that happens. Now, that being said, I think that Jessica Rose Clark will be a little stronger in the clinch. And if she's able to avoid that submission, I could see her having a good amount of control time and getting the decision victory there. I could also see her potentially, not likely, but potentially really doing some damage down in the mat and racking some points up and potentially putting Stoliarenko in danger for the fight to be stopped. I mean, I wouldn't bank on that necessarily, but going into this fight, Jessica Rose Clark's coming off that loss, but before that, she took out Jocelyn Edwards. She got a lot of takedowns in that fight, and then she also really put it on Sarah Alpar, where she took her down and really was beating her up. Actually, I think she put her against the cage at one point in time too, and really did some damage to her there. But I know she had some takedowns in that fight as well. Expect a similar type of game plan from Jessica Rose Clark, but she will be in danger from the submission attempts. And on the feet, it might play out closer than some of you may think. I will edge Jessica Rose Clark here. And right now, this fight, we have a line of Jessica Rose Clark at a -145 with the comeback on Stoliarenko at +120 as the dog there. Maybe you want to target Julija more for the submission prop. I mean, the fight could play out closely, and she could also win a decision. That's definitely likely as well. It's a tricky fight. It's one that I wouldn't necessarily be banking on one way or another. I think if you think that you have an edge on this fight, more power to you. But I don't really see a clear path for either fighter. I think that there's a little bit of some uncertainty here, based on the fact that Stoliarenko can pull that sub off. All right, now we're talking. We got Brad Tavares taking on Dricus du Plessis. Very, very excited for this fight. And this is only the second fight on the card here. So two guys that love to stand and bang. We know Dricus du Plessis has some serious power. 2 knockout finishes in both of his UFC fights since he's joined the Octagon, since he's joined the UFC promotion. He's been nothing but a spectacle. He's made a quick name for himself in the game, the South African fighter. He's more well-rounded than a lot of you guys think. He has good takedown defense. He's a good athlete. He's very physically strong. But really, he's looking to set up that knockout shot on you, and he can hit you with that knockout shot from a variety of angles. His striking defense is above average, in my opinion. I love the fact that he constantly keeps his hands up. He's constantly blocking his chin. Some of you guys think that he's a wild fighter because at times he will throw punches from awkward angles, and his hands will kind of come from his hip at times. But if you're really breaking down tape on him, you're noticing that he has his hands up and he's guarding his chin 99.9% of the time. I've been impressed with his striking defense. So he's not necessarily a fighter that's just going to be in there recklessly looking for a knockout and get clipped himself. And I think that he has a good chin as well. And he's battle tested too, because he's been in there with Trevin Giles, who I actually am high on. I think Trevin Giles is a good fighter. And then Marcus Perez is okay, but he went in there and knocked him out. Now he did start off kind of slow in that fight. It was his UFC debut. We'll give him a break there. He's only 28 years old. Got the octagon jitters out. He settled in the Giles fight. I think he could easily go out here and take out a guy like Brad Tavares, and it could be with the knockout, being the fact that we've seen Brad Tavares knocked out against guys like Tim Bosch. We've seen him knocked out more recently. He was knocked out by Edmund Shabazian, who's really not lived up to the hype that he's once had. So, I mean, I think that Brad Tavares' chin is there to be put out. I know that the Hawaiians are known for being very durable and having very good chins, but Tavares, in my opinion, can be put out here by du Plessis. Now, that all being said, I do want to talk about the fact that Brad Tavares is a very good fighter himself, coming off a victory against Omari Akhmedov. Omari Akhmedov's been over there in the PFL scene, doing damage, getting victories. He's shown to be a well-rounded fighter. Antonio Carlos Jr. as well, a very talented fighter. So he's coming off 2 big victories. He's 34 years old. He's been around the block for a long time. This is a very closely contested match here. I'm going to take Dricus du Plessis, the younger fighter here that has more momentum behind him and who is more live to get the knockout, in my opinion. Now, Tavares has good power as well. He's very technical. He's very well-rounded. He could wrestle. He could do it all. But I give that edge to du Plessis, landing the harder, more powerful shots that may impact the judges if it goes there, or it could put Tavares out. So I will take du Plessis. We'll pull up the Bovada line here, and it's almost a dead even line. You can get even odds on Brad Tavares, and then you can get the -120 line on Dricus du Plessis. All right, so a very, very slight lean on du Plessis here. It's basically a pick'em fight. And I'm going to edge Dricus here. I'm a fan of his, and I'm excited to see if he can go in there and get another knockout, get the 3-peat there. Jessica Evil Eye taking on Maycee, the future Barber. Maycee Barber, only 24 years old. Speaking of very young, up-and-coming talent, we talked earlier about Arman Saruki, and Maycee Barber has been very impressive. I love the work that she's doing over at Team Alpha Male, having Uriah Faber in her corner. I'm very, very high on what's going on over there. She impressed me in a major way in her last fight. She's showing that not only is she ferocious on the feet with her boxing and her overall striking, but her wrestling and her strength in the clinch is really, really above average, and she's going to give a lot of fighters problems there. I know some of you guys have been hard on her. I know that she hasn't always gone out there and extremely impressed since making the jump to the big show after the big performance on Dana White's Contender Series. Dropped that fight to Roxanne Modafferi. She was injured in that fight, and then she lost to Alexa Grasso, who is one of the top fighters over in the women's side of things right now. I really believe that Grasso has been very impressive to me. So understand that. Maycee Barber coming off the victory to against Miranda Maverick and Montana De La Rosa. Jessica Eye, Jessica Eye, 15-10. She has some tough losses. She's fought a lot of legit fighters. She's been in there with real talent. She's fought in the bantamweight division. Let's keep something in perspective here too. Jessica Eye, has experience fighting in the bantamweight division, while Maycee Barber actually has experience fighting in the strawweight division as they meet here at the flyweight division. I know it's been a while since either of them have been fighting in those respective divisions, but just keep in mind, I do believe that Jessica Eye is a little bit more of the naturally larger woman, and Jessica Eye is more well-rounded than some of you guys like to admit. Now, she's not the most talented fighter. I get it. We've seen her get her head teed off by Valentina Shevchenko. That nasty head kick, one of the most devastating knockouts we've ever seen in women's mixed martial arts. Bounce back with the victory over Vivian Araújo. I mean, that's the thing that Jessica Eye can go out there and do real quick. We'll take a look. She can go out there and play spoiler at times in fights that you really don't think that she would. I mean, victory over Caitlin Chookagian, victory over Jessica Rose Clark, the Vivian Araújo fight I talked about. I mean, those aren't really victories that you would expect her to take, right? I mean, if you think about it now, against Chookagian, Araújo, I mean, and she's went in there and had some closely contested matchups against legit fighters as well. So, that being said, let me not rant too much on this fight. Maycee Barber will land the cleaner shots here, the more impactful, heavier hooks. From what I've seen from Barber at this point, I think that she'll be the fighter that's pressing a little bit more in the clinch, kind of pushing Eye up against the cage. Look a little bit better for the judges' scorecards there. Now, I'm not extremely confident that she has a lot of success there in the clinch, because Jessica Eye is very physically strong as well. But once they break off, or however that goes down, once they break off and they're in open space, Barber is just more accurate with her shots. She moves better. Jessica Eye is a little clunky. She's a little stiff. She'll be rocking back and forth like this, throwing her little 1-2. She might land a little bit here and there, but at the end of the day, Barber will be the fighter that lands the cleaner, more technical shots. Barber will have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. She's an inch shorter. Not too worried about all that. I think Barber gets the job done, and we'll check out best fight odds here, where you'll see Maycee Barber up at the minus 225 up to the minus 240 range. I love my girl Maycee. Just be careful. Just be careful with that type of line. She should get the job done. I would not be shocked if Jessica Eye does play spoiler here. I wouldn't be shocked, but it's not likely. But be careful with the line. If you're targeting this and you're putting a lot of money out there on a fight like this, just be careful. At least hopefully you're getting a decent line here. I hope you're grabbing a more of a minus 225 before this fight's minus 260, 270, or however this fight settles in at. You see it here on DraftKings opening up at minus 220, settling in at minus 240 as of Monday. Let's see how that line goes over the course of the week. We got a stylistic clash here. We got Uriah Hall taking on Andre Muniz. Muniz, of course, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist. In my opinion, one of the top BJJ players in the sport of MMA right now. As far as his game coming from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side of things, translating into the sport, I think Muniz has been having just about as much success as anybody. Uriah Hall, we know he's a striking first type of fighter. He has some of the more flashier knockouts that we've ever seen in the game. Of course, the knockout that he had on the Ultimate Fighter show was ridiculous against the old boxer there. I forgot his name, but he was a guy that really was a boxer that dabbled in the sport of MMA. His hands were extremely low, and he got decapitated. That was one of the crazier knockouts we've ever seen. Uriah Hall has a couple of crazy finishes like that. If you think about the finish he had on Gegard Mousasi, that was ridiculous. Through that spinning kick, was aiming for the liver or aiming for the midsection, and Gegard Mousasi actually ducked down into that, got that finish there against Mousasi, who Mousasi just lost a big fight as well, against Johnny Eblen. Shout out to Eblen over there in Bellator. But Gegard Mousasi doesn't lose to many men. Of course, in the rematch, he went out there and dominated Uriah Hall. But Uriah Hall has that potential to finish the fight at any given time. We've seen him do it to a couple different men. He's super explosive. He's impressed me at times because he's a fighter that really doesn't like to be pressured and bullied around, and he's shown that in specific fights, but then he's also rebounded and showed extreme toughness in other fights. So he's constantly working on his overall game. The Sean Strickland fight, the amount of damage that he took in that fight, and at times continuously coming forward, even though he was bloodied up and hurt, that impressed me. He's a fighter that doesn't really cave and give in as much as some of you guys think. If you remember the Paulo Costa fight, I believe it was, that was a fight where he really got bullied and taken out, and that was back in 2018. That was an official play of mine way back in 18. And that was a fight that he got cornered and really caved in. But since then, he's been really showing improvement. Check the leg kick of Chris Weidman, knocked out Anderson Silva, an aged Anderson Silva. The split decision over Antonio Carlos Jr. and the knockout of Bavon Lewis was a good one there. Now listen, Andre Muniz, I've been riding with him for a while. You guys know that now. We've been having official plays on him, and he's been coming through. We've grabbed him at great lines. You see him hitting the mitts here. One thing I will say is that although he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist, I think he's very much underrated on the feet. He's very rangy. He's very quick and athletic, and he's getting better and better in that department, and he gives guys problems on the feet as well. He'll fight in the southpaw stance, and he flusters guys there too, and he'll mix that in with his grappling, and just overall, he's a tough outing for anybody. Again, his frame is very solid for the division. 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. Uriah Hall will have a 1.5-inch reach advantage, but there's fights that Hall goes in having much more than that. So Hall is a big fella as well, and he will be an inch shorter. I got to go with my boy Andre Muniz here. I just think that he gets the job done, and I think that he continues to shine. I think that he continues to be a better version of himself and works his way towards the top of this division. That's how high I am on Muniz. I really do believe that he is a fighter that is going to prove to be an extremely well-rounded, dangerous fighter. If you go down to the mat with him, your arm could be snapped within seconds, as we saw against Jacare Souza, one of the more talented jiu-jitsu players we've ever seen fight in the UFC or in the sport of MMA. Goes out there, breaks his arm, pulls the first round submission over Eric Anders, over Bartosz Fabinski. I've been impressed. What he did to Taylor Johnson on Dana White's Contender Series, the tough wrestler, went out there, choked him out in the first round. I've been impressed. I like Andre Muniz to win this fight. Now, if he can't get this fight down to the mat, and this fight ends up playing out for the majority of the time on the feet, of course, Hall has the potential to land that big shot or work his way to a decision victory. Uriah Hall is the more polished and better striker potentially, but I say that potentially because, like I said, Muniz is developing, and I wouldn't be surprised if Muniz lands some big shots on the feet. And with the variety of him striking and mixing in takedowns and clinch and whatnot, I think he's just a better fighter, and I like Muniz to win the fight. Let's check out the line here on Bovada. Muniz right now is a -265 favorite on Bovada.lv, which is it's pretty high, right? That's a pretty high line. I like Muniz to get the job done there. Be careful if you're parlaying that or attacking that straight, putting a lot of money on it to win a little something. Uriah Hall is a tough outing. He's a tough outing for everybody, but I like Andre Muniz to win the fight. Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Jim Miller, two of the biggest legends to ever throw down in the sport of MMA, two UFC Hall of Famers potentially, right? I know Cerrone's a Hall of Famer. I'm assuming Jim Miller should definitely be a Hall of Famer based on his credentials. These guys actually have squared off already. Donald Cerrone was able to put Jim Miller out in that fight. I believe it was a second round finish. I think he hit him with a head kick and whatnot, followed it up. That That was a long time ago. If you're breaking down tape on that fight, a lot has changed. I don't think there's necessarily too much value in that first fight. We'll get to that here in a second. Now, I knew that Cerrone was going to be fighting Miller almost instantaneously from the moment he found out the Lozon fight was scratched. Thanks to some of my intel that I've been getting. And this was a fight that I was very, very excited for from the moment I heard it was going to go down. I think it's a perfect fight. They're both up there in age, 39 and 38. Jim Miller has been going out there and getting victories. On the other hand, Cerrone's been really having a tough road as of recently. But you do keep in mind the fact that Cerrone has been going in there and fighting some of the best fighters in the game. Now, the Alex Morono fight, which was his last fight over a year ago now, that one, you know, I'm a fan of Morono. I think he's a tough customer, but I'm not going to throw Morono's name in there with some of the other legends that Cerrone was losing to. That was a tough performance for Cerrone, in my opinion. And based on the fact that Cerrone kind of faded pretty hard as that fight was progressing, that worried me a little bit. He's been in a lot of wars. Of course, we remember the Tony Ferguson fight. I feel like he's been having more and more trouble moving his head off the center line. We've seen that throughout his career, but he's always been able to get away with it, kind of. Does so many things so well. He's so extremely tough. But it does worry me a little bit when you keep your head there, because with all the scar tissue and the damage that he's taken, he opens up, and it's just not a good look for the judges' scorecards. And obviously, potentially the fight ends up on its way to being finished. Jim Miller has good boxing. He could definitely find his mark there. Miller's an excellent BJJ practitioner, as is Cerrone. They're both very talented down on the mat. That'll be fun to watch if it goes down there. I'll tell you this much, this is very important. From some of my intel that I've been getting, Donald Cerrone has been looking phenomenal in his fight camps as of recently. He's been extremely motivated going into this last fight that was supposed to be against Lozon. Of course, that fight fell through twice. Now against Jim Miller here. He's been extremely motivated after that loss against Morono. So that's something that you keep an eye on. And he's supposedly in phenomenal shape, and he's been giving his training partners hell. So you do keep that in mind. You do also keep in mind that Cerrone's been filmed a movie. I know as of recently there's a movie that he was just in. It actually looks pretty cool. I want to check that out. Here it is, Terror on the Prairie. So I mean, you do gotta wonder what's the deal with that. You know what happened with Ronda Rousey getting distracted, and certain fighters getting distracted and not performing as good as they normally were. You also take in consideration he's 39 years old, but again, the word is that he is hitting all cylinders over there at the BMF ranch. So I think that this is a very close fight. I'm going to say this much as we pull up the live line on this fight. And real quick, you see Jimbo scratching the beard up, man. Big shout out to Jimbo. I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of Cerrone and Miller's. But as we pull up the live line on this fight, which you will see that Jim Miller is over a 2-1 favorite here against Cerrone. I think that the value is more so on Cerrone from the intel that I'm getting of how great that he's looking in camp, how good he's looking physically. I think that the line is off here. But I think that Jim Miller has looked to sustain his skill set a lot more as he's progressed in age, more so than Cerrone. I feel like Cerrone has been dipping more and more. And I got to go with Jim Miller to get the job done here. Although I think the line's off. I think the value is on Cerrone. We also keep in mind Cerrone has already finished Jim Miller, has the victory over Jim Miller. I think the line is off here. But I do feel that Jim Miller is just... something's up with this guy. We just saw him on the Joe Rogan Experience. He never gets injured. This guy is just cut from a different cloth. I know he got bit by a tick, maybe some type of like superhero, kind of how Spider-Man got bit by a spider. He got bit by a tick. He's like the super New Jersey wild man out there in the forest. I mean, Jim Miller is something special. I'm a big fan of his as well. Shout out to both of these men. I think that Jim Miller lands some good shots on the feet with his boxing and gets a finish in the second round. That's kind of where I'm going with this, but I'm not going to be surprised if Cerrone shows up, and I almost hope he does. I like both these guys a lot. Cerrone's a G, but I got Miller. We got another future on the card. Ian Garry, the future. Maycee Barber, the future. You would almost think that they're both going to be future champions. Is that what they're trying to say? I mean, Yeah, it's like Back to the Future over here on this fight card. But if you ask me, if you want to look into the future and you want to see future champions, you really look back at last weekend's card. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Arman Sarukian. Listen, it might not happen necessarily right away, but down the line, remember, he's only 25 years old. So we'll see how guys like Islam and other guys hold up when he's 30, 31, and they're up there in age. So keep that in mind. And then you want to talk about future champions, Umar Nurmagomedov. But anyways, Ian Garry's talking about he's the future, and he's been doing his thing. He's gone in there now. He's taken out Darian Weeks. I just saw that fight live. That was the one that took place in Jacksonville. He did take out Jordan Williams in his debut. I wasn't too impressed with him throughout the entire fight of the Jordan Williams fight. Of course, he landed that knockout shot, but before that, he was being controlled up against the cage. He was being very patient. And if he didn't land that knockout shot, I don't know how the fight would have went overall if it went to the judges' scorecards. So just keep that in mind. I could be off on that though. I mean, he might know what he's doing in there, and he could be playing it smooth, and he's patient, and he's working on setting up what he wants to set up. So let's not be too harsh on him there. The Darian Weeks fight, I mean, he went in there, he outstruck him. He's a big boy for the division. He really has some good range for him with his frame. In this fight here, he has a massive height advantage, but only a 1-inch reach advantage with the 74-inch reach compared to Green's 73. Only a 1-inch reach advantage, even though, 5 inches taller. So that's kind of interesting there. But keep in mind, he could use his kicks there as far as if he wants to implement that range advantage, he could use the kicks, which he does throw kicks. Gabe Green, I think Gabe Green is one of the more underrated fighters in the game right now. I really do. As far as what he's able to do physically and just what he's able to do in the cage based on the recognition of his name and whatnot, and also from an entertainment standpoint. Something about Gabe Green, I think it's something to do with his name or something. It just comes off a little generic, and he's one of those guys that kind of blend in. He's just kind of under the radar. But I'll tell you what, man, he goes out there and puts it on Ian Garry, and he'll take some of that momentum from Ian Garry. And in his last fight, he put on an impressive performance, knocking out Johan Linnaeus. Started off a little slow, but Green he doesn't slow down. He's like the Terminator. He continues to come forward. He can box. He can grapple. He's very physically strong. Look at the traps on him here. He's very strong in the clinch as well. He's a well-rounded fighter, and I think that he's very live to get the victory here in this fight. I really do. I think that he's live here. That being said, Ian Garry's been putting in a lot of work over at Sanford MMA. He's trained with some of the best fighters in the world. You guys know what's going down over there. It's very serious. And I think that he has the avenue to outstrike Green from the outside, use his footwork, and take a decision here. And of course, there's always the potential that he lands that big shot and gets a knockout, because Gabe Green is more than willing to engage, and he's lacking a little bit with his striking defense. So the knockout for Ian Garry is live for sure as well, as you see Ian Garry training with Stephen Wonderboy, training some karate skills here. And I think that might even be Boss Rutan there. So hanging with legends in the game right now. And that's what he's been doing. He's been training with legends, just becoming a better and better fighter. And that's why I am going to take Ian Garry. I think that we're going to see more of a progression from his overall skill set, fight to fight, very rapidly. He's only 24 years old. I like the size advantage here. And overall, there's more avenues for him to get the job done. But I wouldn't be shocked if Gabe Green pushes him up against the cage a little bit, gets things dirty, lands a couple big shots. I would not be shocked. We'll check the live line here over at Best Fight Odds, where you will see that Ian Garry is a minus 155 up to the minus 175 range, mostly around that minus 155 to minus 165 right now. Let's see where this line opened up at. It's been a little bit back and forth. Opened up at minus 150, dipped to minus 195 over at DraftKings, came right back up. People recognizing the abilities of Gabe Green. Like I said, Gabe Green, a fighter that's a little bit more under the radar. I think that this line is pretty accurate. Maybe even a minus 145 next to Gary's name. A slight favorite, but definitely some potential trouble for him this upcoming Saturday. Let's see if he passed this test. If he passes this test, we'll continue to see how far he can push it. And Gabe Green is a legit test. This is this is the biggest fight of his career for sure. This is the biggest test and biggest fight of his career to date. Let's see if the former Cage Warriors champ can do his thing here. For those of you guys asking, or if you're interested in my official plays, just shoot me an email, MMAFortuneteller@gmail.com, or shoot me a message on Twitter, the MMA Teller, or Instagram, MMAFortuneteller_. I'll give you my pricing, and we can work a deal or whatnot. But for those of you guys that are interested, I do get messages from a lot of you guys asking me, what's your official plays? I do charge for my official plays. I do do a little something over here, guys. And if you're interested working with me, you'll be more than happy if you make that move. I'm telling you guys, you should see my customers right now hitting 12 of my last 13 plays after what we did last year in the year of 2021, absolutely killing it, and already up very nicely through the year 2022. So you will not regret it. I have a long-term track record. Hit me up. I can give you all those details, and I'd love to work with you guys. Robbie, ruthless Lawler, one of my favorite fighters to ever throw down in the game, taking on Bryan Barberena. Bam Bam, a fighter that has really carved out a little niche in the game for himself. This is a guy that people had very, very low expectations for as he made his way into the UFC, but he's made out very well. They know he delivers from an entertainment standpoint. They've thrown him in there with a lot of exciting fighters, and I think that Bryan Barberena should be very pleased with the way his career has gone. Some ups and downs, but overall, I'm sure there's a lot of fighters that would like to have the resume of a Bryan Barberena in the division. So shout out to Barberena for that. He's coming off 2 victories. Questionably, a lot of people thought that he lost that Matt Brown fight. I thought Matt Brown should have got the nod there. It was a very close fight. Barberena, a well-rounded fighter. He could wrestle. He could throw power shots at you. He could brawl it out with you. He has a very good chin, even though we've seen his chin tested as well. But overall, his chin is pretty decent. I'll say this much. As of recently, he's put out a couple questionable performances. The loss to Jason Witt, he was gassing a little bit in that fight, breathing very heavy as that fight went into the second half of it. I was a little breaking down tape on that. I was a little weary about his performance there. He does push the pace, but at the same time, he was breathing pretty heavy in that fight. He plots forward. He's a little bit stuck in the mud when he moves, but he's looking to land those power shots on you, and he's looking to put you out. Robbie Lawler will engage in that type of affair. I think Robbie Lawler is going to have the speed advantage here, the technique advantage. I could see Robbie Lawler throwing some nasty body kicks, mixing things up with his boxing. We know Lawler's 40 years old now, but really looked good against Nick Diaz. And the pace in that fight was very, very high, if you didn't realize. I know Nick Diaz was a little out of shape coming in, but he was still pushing the pace like crazy. Robbie was right there with him. And I think that Lawler will have a cardio edge here. He'll throw a little bit more cleaner shots in this fight. And I'm going to take my boy Robbie here. I think that Robbie can come in here and get the victory over the younger Bryan Barberena, who's only 33, 7 years younger than Robbie Lawler. But Robbie's over there at Sanford MMA. You see him there. And, again, we were just talking about what's going down over there. We were just talking about Black Rifle Coffee, too. I guess this is an ad for them. It's funny because I'm sipping on Black Rifle Coffee right now. It's pretty good. But, Robbie's still getting it in, man. He's still grinding. And I don't see any reason why he can't take out Bryan Barberena. He's a better fighter. He's a better overall fighter. You see him here in the corner with Logan Storley. You talk about working on your wrestling, man. Storley's the truth there. Just surrounded by talent. And he still looks to be in good shape to me. So I'm not going to turn my back on Lawler right now, even though there's that big 4-0 next to his name. Take a look at the betting line here. And you're looking at a line right now on Robbie Lawler of minus 125. He's a very, very slight favorite against Bryan Barberena, who's a plus 105. And it's a decently accurate line. I expect Lawler maybe to settle in around minus 140. I think people will edge him to get the job done here. There'll be some people questioning his age and whatnot, but again, he is the better fighter. In his prime, he would run circles around a guy like Bryan Barberena, and he just really hasn't slowed down that much. And one other factor I want to bring up real quick, you take a look at his losses. A loss to Neil Magny, where he was out-wrestled. A loss to Colby Covington. A loss to Ben Askren. You put an asterisk next to that. He did some big damage in that fight. It was the early stoppage. It was a bad stoppage. There was no real tap, remember? And in retrospect, he probably would have got out of that, and now that we know what we know about Askren, he would have knocked Askren out on the feet. I do believe that. and then the RDA fight. I mean, we're talking about top-level fighters. So Lawler still doing his thing. I'm going to take him to win the fight. I think Lawler gets it done. We got a true treat right here. Two extremely high-caliber strikers throwing down. Jalin Turner taking on Brad Riddell. Jalin Turner, let's talk about him real quick. As of recently, coming off that big victory over Jamie Mullarkey, a tough customer. Jamie Mullarkey, in fact, a common foe of both these men. Both men do have a victory over him. Jamie Mullarkey's legit. In that fight, we had an official play on Jalin Turner as well. We grabbed that at a great line. Before that, finishes Uros Medish. Uros Medish just went out, got a big victory. He's a legit fighter. So the stock in that victory does go up. Before that, bullies and finishes Brock Weaver. And then before that, knocks out Joshua Cooleybow. The stock in that victory goes up as well, as Cooleybow has been looking very good and has shown to be a very tough outing for anybody. All right. Brad Riddell coming off that loss to Rafael Fiziev. Both men, former, or at one point in time, Tiger Muay Thai striking coaches. I forget who is the current and who was the former, but that was an extremely high-level striking match. Eventually, Brad Riddell did fizzle and lose later in the fight. Got hit with that wheel kick, but looked very good in that fight. Before that, beating Drew Dober and Alex Da Silva, Magomed Mustafayev, and Jamie Mullarkey. I hold all of those victories at a high value. I think those are solid victories. I'm very high on both these men. I'm very excited to see how this fight takes place. Both these guys, 30 and under, they're hitting the primes of their career. And Jalin Turner is going to be the much taller fighter here. We're talking about an 8-inch height advantage with about a 4-inch reach advantage. So not necessarily as much of a reach advantage as you would think, but he's much taller. Jalin Turner can work the kicks here from the outside. I really think that's what he should do. I really hope that his coaching and his game plan is to really strike from the outside, because at times Turner is more than willing to engage in the pocket, which I don't think he should be as much based on the frame that he has. I mean, he'll walk his opponents down and be right he'll fight in a phone booth. And I think that'll be a bad idea for him here because, Brad Riddell is no joke, and Brad Riddell carries serious power, and Jalin Turner is there to be hit at times as well and to be put out. Let's make that clear. Before the loss to Matt Frivola, where he was out wrestled, I don't think that'll be a problem here. His takedown defense has been evolving and looking very good. I don't think that Riddell is going to be even looking for that avenue of a fight. And even if he did, I think that I do think that Turner will stuff those takedowns. Vicente Luque did have a knockout against him on the feet. He was knocked out against Richard Leroy over at SXF. He was knocked out against Ronnie Borgia over at CFL. So 3 knockout losses on the resume of Jalin Turner. I just wanted to point that out because Brad Riddell is very dangerous there. Now, that all being said, Riddell's coming off a knockout loss himself. And the way that Turner's been coming through for me, putting money in my pocket, it's going to be tough for me to pick against Turner here. I love the size advantage. But again, I do hope that he tries to fight from the outside a little bit more so. I want to see him throwing that push kick, that T-kick to the midsection. Keep Riddell at bay. Do not engage in the phone booth. Do not brawl it out with him because Riddell will crack you and will put you out. All right? And also keep an eye on Riddell's nasty leg kicks. Look for him to try to chop down Jalin Turner as well. I'm really excited to see how this fight takes place. I'm going to pull up the Bovada line on this fight. And keep in mind, if you guys want to sign up for Bovada, you guys know you can reach out to me. I'll throw you my referral link, and I'll give you all my plays for this fight card for free. You guys know that. All right, Jalin Turner is a -130 with the comeback on Riddell at +110. Woof. I think that line is very accurate. I'm going to put a slight lean on Jalin Turner just based on how amazing he's been looking as of recently and the stature and the frame he possesses, the athleticism, the speed. I think if he keeps fine-tuning what he's got going on over there, if the coaches mold him the right way, there's big things to come from Turner in the near future. Sugar, Sean O'Malley taking on Pedro Munhoz. Come on, man, the Sugar Show. Everyone's excited to watch this fight one way or another. I know there's some Sugar haters. I know there's a lot of people that support him. I could dive into what I think of Sugar. I like watching him fight. I think first and foremost, his skill set is what makes him so exciting to watch. The diverse attacks that he throws, it's like watching a video game when he's in there. And if you're a fight fan, I don't know how you don't love that. Now, as far as his personality, he kind of has that that new age, like millennial type personality. I seen a video he just posted recently on his IG where he's doing pranks on people. It was actually decently funny, I guess, if I'm being honest. He went up and I don't know if I can find it here, but he went up and he scanned an Xbox or a TV, whatever, and tried to get someone to buy it. It was decently funny. You see him over here with the eggplant under his leg. I mean, he has some decent jokes at times. I mean, I'm not one to really try to roast someone for their jokes because, I throw them out occasionally, and I have a lot of, bad ones that come out there as well. So I'm not going to, go too hard on him there. But if there's something that I'm not crazy about in regards to Sean O'Malley, he reminds me a little bit of one of those dudes that never smoked weed in his life, all the way through middle school, high school, and started smoking when he was like 25, and then gets obsessed with it. And the fact that obsessed with it, I mean, I don't care how much you smoke, but you got to think it's so cool and constantly talk about it. I knew a lot of those kids, back in my old city and whatnot. You know what I mean? I don't know. I was smoking when I was like 12, 13 years old, but it was just, you get that it's cool thing out of your system by the time you're in 9th, 10th grade. And then, there's these types of dudes. But at the end of the day, it's, good marketing, I guess. I guess it kind of helps his thing going on. But, yeah, we get it, man. You smoke weed, you hit the bag and whatnot. Guy's fun to watch in the cage. And Pedro Munhoz is another guy that's fun to watch. And he's a guy that's fun to watch a fight with. I had the pleasure of watching some bare knuckle fights with him a while back in Fort Lauderdale. And him and Gleison Tibau, man, we watched the main event side by side. We were cheersing, having a blast. And he's just an awesome dude, man. He's not a guy that walks around like he's, something special. He's just a normal Joe Schmo out and about, man. He was just hanging out, and I have a picture with him somewhere, but a real class act, a family man, a guy that has a nasty guillotine. He can choke anybody out if you make a mistake and get sucked into it. He's really fell in love with his striking as of recently. And he really favors the power shots as well. He goes out there and looks to starch his opponents. Kind of cost him in that Frankie Edgar fight. I think that he should have just been going out there, just pumping the jab, throwing lighter shots. I think that he could have got the job done. A lot of people thought that he got the job done anyway, but he was really headhunting in that fight. If he headhunts against Sean O'Malley, he could definitely be in trouble because Sean O'Malley won't be there for those types of shots. I think Pedro Munhoz should continue to walk forward and chop the legs of Sean O'Malley down and just not put too much on his shots with his hands, but just try to touch O'Malley, work the body, try to bully him up, maybe sneak a couple takedowns, get him down to the mat. It was a long time ago, but if you didn't ever catch the fight of Sean O'Malley and I believe it was this guy Miles, Mars Sukanowicz, whatever, it was before he was a pro, but he got dominated down in the mat in that fight. But since then, his footwork and his takedown defense has definitely progressed. It's really his footwork because he's just not there for you to get a hold of, and he's very tall, and it's hard to get him down. You really got to get under those hips, man. You got to really close the distance and get a hold of him. He's coming off another big victory against Julian Paiva, the knockout against Thomas Almeida. This is a step up in competition. This fight is a little bit reminiscent to the Marlon Chito Vera fight, where you have a fighter that's legit, that can check your kicks, walk forward, smash your legs, and try to hit you with some power shots and potentially break you, get you down to the mat, and hurt you. And something that's definitely worth noting is that Sean O'Malley is a guy that's been hurt in multiple fights. He gets hurt. His legs get hurt. If you guys remember the Andre Sukumtat fight, he should have lost that fight. Andre just didn't know how to stand up because Sean O'Malley couldn't even stand. They would have stopped the fight. And he spends the whole third round grappling with him. One of the worst mental errors I've ever seen in a fight. But there's a realistic possibility that a super durable and stout guy like Pedro Munhoz chops down Sean O'Malley and hurts him and gets on top of him, and you see something similar to the Marlon Chito Vera fight. That being said, I definitely am taking Sean O'Malley here. I think that he's just evolving and he's something special, and I think that he'll land big shots from the outside. There's the potential he gets the knockout from the outside, starches Pedro Munhoz, or he cruises his way to a decision. There's a minus 216 line next to Sean O'Malley's name. I think that's pretty high. I wouldn't feel extremely confident in that pick. Be careful. I know there's a lot of you targeting that line because Sean O'Malley has the name. I'm sure there's a lot of casuals that are going to be steaming that line. Pedro Munhoz is a gladiator. He's a well-rounded gladiator, and he's very live to pull the job off here. But I got Sean O'Malley to win the fight. You know, it's kind of hitting me right now as I look at this fight, how excited I'm going to be as this main card starts to pick up. We go from the Sean O'Malley fight into this Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira fight. This fight is so intriguing. We know that Sean Strickland loves to engage in the feet. He loves a good old scrap. Alex Pereira, one of the more decorated strikers to ever come into the sport of MMA, the decorated kickboxing resume, a guy that's knocked out Israel Adesanya over there, a guy that has all types of tools in his arsenal. He'll throw flying knees on you, all types of kicks, punches, everything. He's so technical. Well, forget about all the technical skills he possesses. How about the frame? 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, an 80-inch wingspan. I mean, that's something else. Listen, when it comes down to this fight, I really hope that Sean Strickland doesn't just entertain a complete striking affair, which I think is a possibility. I think that Sean Strickland's such a tough guy, as you see him training over here, coming off all types of injuries to his leg. I mean, I think that's a little ridiculous. He has the brace on it and everything, and he's in there throwing down. I think that's not necessarily a smart move, but it just shows you the toughness that he has. He's the type of guy that will sit in there and engage in a striking war with a guy like Alex Pereira. Sean Strickland's striking is ridiculous. It's very good. It's a Diaz type of style, a very, very high-paced boxing pressure type style that gives a lot of guys problems. But if there's a guy that can pick that up and be the kryptonite of that very easily, it's a guy like Alex Pereira. Sean Strickland needs to mix things up. He has to clinch. He has to go for takedowns. His ground game is very much underrated. If he gets his fight down to the mat and gets on top, he could definitely do some damage and really beat up Pereira. At the same time, Pereira has been working on his takedown defense and his overall game, his jiu-jitsu and all that for longer than many people really understand. He's not just some guy that's a kickboxer that just started getting into MMA. He has dabbled with the sport of MMA for a long time. He's a stud. He's so live for the knockout in this fight based on the fact that Sean Strickland is going to engage in that type of fight, at least for some period of time. If you want to take a look back, maybe you guys want to reminisce here for a second. How about this Sean Strickland versus Zaleski Dos Santos fight where he got hit with that spinning hook kick? All right. I mean, you might see something similar to that. And then before that, the loss to Kamaru Usman, just to brush upon how good Sean Strickland is, because he only loses to high-level fighters. Santiago Ponzinibbio was the other loss. But in the Dos Santos fight, he got caught on the feet. I will not be shocked if something similar happens in this fight. I can see Pereira hitting him with something nasty, spinning on the feet, or some type of flying knee, or just even a nasty overhand, just setting something up. I think Pereira is very live here. But I'll say this, as we pull up the Bovada.lv line, where you will see Alex Pereira, a guy that is 5-1, 6 pro fights, against a guy in Sean Strickland with 28 professional fights. He's on a giant win streak. Alex Pereira is the -125 favorite with the slight underdog line of Sean Strickland, next to Sean Strickland's name of +105. I find that interesting. I do understand why, I understand why. We talked about it here a second ago. I'm taking Sean Strickland, though, because not only does Sean Strickland have that avenue of grappling and clinch work and being the overall more well-rounded fighter there, let's be honest. Alex Pereira ate a lot of shots, on the feet against the very talented and tough, underrated Bruno Silva. But Pereira ate a lot of shots in that fight. That fight played out very closely. I think that Sean Strickland, if he can survive and not get knocked out, he could actually damage up and bloody up Pereira too. So there's different avenues of victory here. I got Sean Strickland to win this fight. And he's a dog. He's a +105 dog right now. I got Sean Strickland to win the fight, but I would not be surprised at all if he gets knocked out or outstruck. Pereira's been looking good. We got the trilogy. We brushed upon this fight at the start of the video. The third time they're fighting down. But again, everybody, or a lot of people, I shouldn't say everybody, hit the comment section up. Who did you guys have winning the last fight? The majority of people, I do believe, thought Max Holloway won that fight. I'll say this. I had an official play on Alexander Volkanovski on both matches with Max Holloway. So obviously I made out good. But I kind of thought that I got away with it the last fight. I thought that Holloway was going to get his hand raised. And I thought he won that fight. So if I'm being honest there. We're going to get to the betting line here in a second because it's kind of interesting. Holloway is coming in as an underdog in this fight. which, like I said, coming off that last performance, I find that interesting. Since those 2 losses, Holloway goes out there, puts on a clinic against Calvin Kattar, and then also goes out and defeats Yair Rodriguez in a great fight. Max Holloway, still very young, one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. I'm surprised he's coming in here as a dog, but I kind of understand why. People are looking at this fight. They're seeing the fact that Alexander Volkanovski has 2 victories over him already. They're seeing what Volkanovski has been doing, because Volkanovski's been taking his game to a whole nother level. He just went out there and brutalized the Korean Zombie. I saw that fight live. It was an absolute clinic. Went out there, finished him. Volkanovski's striking has came around like crazy. He's so physically strong. He's a physically gifted and unique type of fighter. In that sense, he could do it all. He's an athlete, a former rugby player. He really is. He's a different type of athlete. Some of you guys think when you think of an athlete, you think of someone that's just super nimble and quick and whatnot. And he's an athlete that came over from the sport of rugby and has translated very good into the sport of MMA. He's a brute man. He's quick. He's explosive, and he's damn good. This is a fight that needed to happen. We need to settle who is the best current featherweight fighter in the world. And after the way the last fight took place, I think it's fair to want to see this fight again. Max Holloway is going to have a reach disadvantage, even though he's substantially taller at 5'11" with the comeback on Volkanovski at 5'6". Volkanovski built very, very strangely with that 71.5-inch wingspan, with only being 5'6" there. So Holloway, 30 years old, been in a lot of wars though. Does it ever catch up to him? Does he start to get put out? Does he start to get knocked out? One of the greatest chins that we've ever seen in the game. Volkanovski, a great chin. I'm so excited for this fight right now, just thinking about it. And again, we talk about as we cruise through this main card, just having sheer entertainment. I'm going to give you my pick here as we pull up the Bovada.lv line. And you're going to see Max Holloway with the plus 159 line next to his name there. And Volkanovski at a minus 190. I find it interesting. All right, so it's weird for me here because I sided with Volkanovski twice. He came through for me twice. We talked about how the last one went. I'm going to pick Max Holloway to win the fight. I thought that he won the last time around. That fight wasn't that long ago. Holloway's just been looking better and better, as Volkanovski has as well. But Holloway's been looking extremely good. I think that Holloway is going to outvolume him. I think Holloway is going to be extremely motivated for this fight after tasting defeat to him, especially in that last fight where he thought he got the job done. He's probably training like crazy. He's super hungry. And I'm going to take Holloway in that big co-main event spot. All right? Holloway is cut from a different cloth. He's a different type of dude. It's so funny, man. I just remember Max Holloway making his UFC debut. I remember watching him scrap with guys like Dustin Poirier a long time ago. And he was a very skinny, frail striker, fighting in the featherweight division. And obviously he's had a fight up in the lightweight division as well. I mean, obviously this is still in the featherweight division, but he used to be a lot more skinny. Probably wasn't cutting that much weight back then, and he's grown into his body. He's became a man. He's became a staple of the UFC. I got Max Holloway to win this fight, but Volkanovski is just no joke, and there's no telling that he doesn't go out there and get a knockout victory, or if he goes out there and looks better than ever, and this time just takes it from Holloway, puts a stamp on the trilogy, and goes out there and dominates. There's a lot of question marks in this fight. We got to watch it and see how it plays out. A lot of you guys have been reaching out to me to sign up through my Bovada.lv referral link, and you guys have been loving the new sportsbook. I told you guys it's a great sportsbook. It's super legit. The payouts, everything's great. It's just a very organized and clean website. If you're looking for a new sportsbook and you haven't already reached out to me, hit me up. I'll give you my referral link, and you get my entire weekend of official plays for free. All right, guys. So it's a no-brainer. You're gonna get a 50% deposit bonus, and you're going to get my official plays for free. So reach out to me if you guys want to sign up through Bovada.lv, and I'll tell you how we move forward with that. All right, guys, this is the card to do it. I'm telling you guys right now, this is the card to do it. We've hit 12 of our last 13 official plays, and we got a giant fight card here where we got some great spots to make money. Israel Adesanya taking on Jared Cannonier. We slide over to the rankings. Of course, Adesanya the champ. Jared Cannonier ranked number 2. Some of you guys I've seen some of you guys talk about, was Cannonier deserving of the shot? I think he is. If you really look at the division, obviously Robert Whittaker, a lot of people thought that he won that last fight against Adesanya. It was close, but they already fought twice. That wasn't going to happen. Cannonier ranked number 2. Adesanya already victories over Marvin Vettori. Sean Strickland still, a big win away, or another. At this point, I'd say another big win away. I mean, based on the fact there's nobody else really there. Derek Brunson already lost to Izzy. Paulo Costa got humped by Izzy, taken out. Jack Hermansson's up there. I mean, the middleweight division, in my opinion, is very weak right now. You need some of this new blood to work its way up. Muniz is really the only guy in the top 15 that's really even that intriguing to me. The middleweight division is the weakest division in the UFC right now, and that's been a very common theme throughout the history of the UFC. It's kind of strange. That's just my take on it. But Jared Cannonier was deserving of this fight. Jared Cannonier is a fighter that's fought in the heavyweight division, the light heavyweight division. Now he's in the middleweight division, the division he should be fighting in. I love his frame for the division. He's jacked up. He's very physically strong. He's a well-rounded fighter. He could do it all. His power is really what sets him off to be potentially live in this matchup, in my opinion, because he can put anybody out. And he's more than willing to engage in a brawl. He'll walk forward, and his elbows are nasty. As of recently, you take a look at the work that he's done, knocking out and just destroying Blonde Brunson. The victory over Kelvin Gastelum. He did lose to Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is a beast. Before that, knocking out Jack Hermansson, and then finishing Anderson Silva on the feet. In my opinion, that knockout that finish of Anderson Silva, due to the leg situation, was more impressive than what Uriah Hall did. For example, to Chris Weidman, where he just checked the kick, where he checked the kick, injuring the leg, whereas Jared Cannonier actually went out there and whipped a leg kick like no other. He basically tried to do what Chris Weidman tried to do. Excuse me there, guys. You guys get what I'm saying. Jared Cannonier did what Chris Weidman was trying to do, and in the process of stopping the fight, which is even more impressive, just going out there and showing the power, just whipping a leg kick and just taking Silva out. No one did that to Silva in that manner. So just understand that Cannonier can really try to implement the leg kicking game and work that on Adesanya. He has big power. What's interesting to me in this matchup is if Cannonier can close the distance and get this fight to play out similarly to the Gastelum Adesanya fight, I think he's very live to get a victory here, in the sense that his power is ridiculous. He's very durable. He can take a shot, and he gets better as the fight goes on. And Adesanya is there to be hit at times, like in the Gastelum fight. If he's engaging in that brawl, he's more likely to be hit. If you let him just play around from the outside, you're not even going to find him. So the Killer Gorilla has to close the distance and get this fight to turn into a brawl. He's got to test Adesanya early, make Adesanya feel like he's getting disrespected a little bit, like he's kind of losing or it's playing out closely, and have Adesanya step the output up, come in. Because if Adesanya is just in complete control and is working the leg kick from the outside and circling, he's going to run circles all over the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier. So that is the key to this fight. Jared Cannonier must make this a brawl. He must land heavy shots. He must close the distance off. He must get this fight to really, really play out in a lively and an exciting manner. That's his avenue to victory. And Izzy, like I said, he needs to make this fight play out the opposite way. Work from the outside. Do this type of stuff. Do the dancing. And listen, you guys know I'm not the biggest Izzy fan, but he's super talented. I got him winning this fight. I'm picking him to win the fight here. You saw him recently at the last card. He's in the front row watching his teammates get victories, and he's celebrating, pointing with his French manicure. I know a lot of you guys dig that type of stuff, and you guys are big fans of him with that. But I don't know. It's a little different. But it's a little different. It's not my cup of tea. I just don't understand what's it's a new fashion he's trying to get going. But again, I don't know. Let me let that go. But Israel Adesanya to get the job done. I think he wins this fight via decision. He's had some questionable performances as of recently. Again, the Robert Whittaker fight, a lot of people thought he lost. The Marvin Vettori fight, he did his thing. and then the Jan Blachowicz loss. But Adesanya is super talented. He's coming into this fight as a big favorite. We'll pull up the live line here, and you're going to be seeing a line next to his name of minus 365 up to the minus 440 range. And don't be shocked if it hits minus 550, something like that. Don't be shocked because he has the big name. He comes through almost all the time, unless he's fighting a guy like Jan Blachowicz up in weight. And he's super talented, and he's probably going to win in a decision here. So that's how I feel this fight's going to play out. I will take Israel Adesanya to retain the championship belt, and hopefully there's some new blood. I guess Sean Strickland or Alex Pereira are the guys that could potentially work their way up to that type of fight. And again, we talked about it earlier with Alex Pereira being a guy that knocked him out, and the UFC potentially trying to make that fight. That's another reason why the division is so shallow, and Adesanya has already beaten a lot of these guys. So you need that new blood. Israel Adesanya to win the fight, though, in the main event this upcoming weekend. All right, so that's going to wrap up UFC 276. As I said, I'm extremely pumped up for this card. I'm going to be all over Instagram in the story and whatnot. I'm going to try to get a live video going. That's something that I definitely want to do a lot moving forward. I want to get the Instagram live videos going. So again, if you haven't followed me over on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _, it'll be one of the better follows you guys get. I got a lot of cool content over there. All right, so that wraps up the card. We're on an extreme tear, not even to go on about that anymore, but obviously there's big implications on this fight card. Can we keep that momentum going? I really feel that we could. I see some good spots here. All right, and as we close this episode out, what I'll say to you guys is be careful making dumb bets. All right, if you see a fight and you know better than to touch a specific line, and even if you start winning and you got money to play with, don't make those reckless moves, okay? Don't make those reckless moves. This past weekend was a perfect example. The Arman Sarukian fight was a fight that we knew to stay away from, okay, guys? And I saw a lot of people throwing him in parlays, saying they had money to work with and to play with. Look, he should have got the nod, but at the end of the day, the line was off in that fight. Gamrat was a serious fighter. There's a lot of fights that are like that. Be careful and don't make reckless moves. You have to stay structured to the value, to what you see is value. If you're accurate with your assessment on the value, that's how you're going to profit long term. You make those wild, wacky decisions, and it will catch you. It will catch up to you. The game is crazy, and especially the way the judges are scoring specific fights. Things are wild, man. Things are wild. So stay structured. Try not to get drunk and make reckless moves. I really feel bad when I hear stories of some of you guys reaching out to me telling me that you blew through your entire account or you lost thousands, and I hear all types of wild stories, and I don't like hearing them. All right, at the end of the day, man, you guys, that especially those guys, you guys here that are tuned in all the way to the end of my video here, I got nothing but love for you guys, and I want nothing but success with your guys' bets. Genuinely, I feel like that. So you guys know that. So just stay structured, man. If you've been betting on MMA for a long period of time or betting on sports over years, this is a discipline that definitely gets you work on it and it gets better and better. I feel like I've mastered that, man. When I first got into the game, I was crazy with my bets, man. I'd make all types of wild bets. I'd drink. I would chase bets. If I was up, I would start doubling up and trying to stack up, and it doesn't pay off. And over time, you will learn that. And when you see it firsthand and you see your accounts dwindle from making dumb moves like that, you slowly calculate in your brain and you see what happens, and you just stay structured and you make the right moves. And that's how you get an edge in the game. That's how you walk away from betting on these fights with more money in your pocket than you came in with. And that is the goal. All right. The goal is to be up to profit while we sit back and engage in watching these fights and enjoy them. But we must, at the very minimum, be slightly up. If not, we want to have a nice return. We want to be able to buy a couple things, right, with the money that we've profited on these fight cards. All right. So that's the goal, guys. Stay disciplined. All right, guys, I love you all that are out here still watching. Big things coming. Big things coming. This is nothing yet. This is just a little backdrop. I got big things coming. And shout out to all you guys that are going to ride with me and see all the future things that are going to be coming here. All right. On that note, say it with me there. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.